Hello everyone, welcome to another stream. As you might see, the picture quality should be a little better than previously. I will explain that in a second. Most importantly, I need you guys to tell me how the microphone is sounding. Is it too loud, too silent, doesn't sound weird or anything? Because I'm on a completely new setup, basically. I don't know how many people there are now. I did this stream earlier in the morning because there was at least one person from Australia who wanted earlier streams so they can catch them. I'm aware that for most people it's a working day in the morning hours right now, or just in the middle of the night, so there most likely won't be this many people in this stream. I'm planning to do again a second one later today, which should hopefully be at a more convenient time for everyone. But yeah, part of this was also just shifting my sleeping schedule again to something a little more normal, so I tried to get up to do this live stream. So yeah, please, even if there's just a couple of you there, I would really appreciate if you could take the time and just write in chat how everything looks, how everything sounds. That would be great. And depending on how many people there are, I will maybe start more or less silently coding until there's more people arriving, or I will give the full intro about what we're doing and what I did yesterday and so on. So if you're out there, let me know. Otherwise, we will get started in just a minute. Hi there, Buffus. Probably you just joined, so I will quickly repeat. I'm on a new setup, so please let me know how's the sound, how's the image, and in a second we'll do a latency test, and then we'll get right started. Let me make sure, I don't know if I can see that now, that it shows the low latency setting here. Okay, I can't change it now, but I think I chose the correct one. Okay, thanks so much guys for letting me know. So since there's at least 2 of you there, probably a couple more, let me look here in my analytics, 6 viewers already, okay, so I can start for good. So I've got a new setup that took me quite some time to set up yesterday. I got some cables which allow me to use my DSLR camera as a webcam. Also got a new small microphone that I can mount on the camera, which is hopefully better than the built-in microphone which I've been using for the past couple live streams, and kind of in comparable quality to my bigger condenser microphone which I used to use in the past, which is just really bulky to carry around, which requires this kind of additional interface. If this works out good for you, I would be really happy. Here, let me actually show how that looks like. Never mind infinity going on here. So here, this is how my webcam looks now. I have this hooked up to the computer, and thanks to a nifty little tool, I can use it as a webcam. And yeah, that was a bit of a fight to set up yesterday. It took hours to debug until I figured out that I need to update maybe the camera firmware for that to work. And also, a kind of funny thing, I don't know if you can, let me try to show this here. Like, you know how MacBooks have only one input for headphones and the microphone, right? So I got a splitter, which basically splits here, so I have a dedicated thing just for the microphone, because if you just plug in a microphone, it won't work there. And then another one here to attach headphones. And I was first doing it without headphones, and it just didn't recognize the microphone at all. So it turns out, I read some guy's blog post, that you need to attach the Apple headphones into the headphone jack for it to accept the splitting cable here at all. So even when you just want to attach a microphone, you still gotta convince your MacBook. Don't worry, I'm just using genuine Apple accessories here. So I've got these headphones dangling here. Might turn out to be useful if we do some live calls later on, or if we maybe want to listen to some music or whatever. But for now, I have finally a solution that works. Apart from that, I didn't stream yesterday because I had some work to do on the code, which I said, which is pretty boring, just some refactoring. And I did that, but I got a little sidetracked because one of the issues which I wanted to fix was that the rendering code is kind of horrible, and it's kind of horrible throughout Citybound. And I spent a lot of time thinking about what would be a good architecture, but the requirements are so complicated that I really felt like this is a topic for more than one day, and kind of parked my my thinking there at the end of the day, because I would rather write a little more shitty rendering code and get what we're actually trying to achieve right now out there than spending even more time now to also rewrite rendering. This will be a topic for another day. Who knows, maybe we'll have a little spare time during this a week of Hackathon. But for now, I really want to get it working and running as fast as possible. And we will actually pick up there straight where we left yesterday. I only did a little code cleanup, and I wanted to leave this moment where it works for the first time and you can see something for the first time, even if it's horribly broken, for the live stream, because that's always, for me, kind of the most fun part of development. Okay, so I will try to give again the intro of what we're doing in general, as short as possible. I did it already in the previous two live streams. Let me quickly connect my iPad here so we can look at the hand-drawn notes. Just a sec. In the meantime, at least for you two guys in the chat, I would love to know which time zone you are in, and why you had the chance to tune in now, even if you're just like sitting at home and basically having the time to watch even early in the day. That would be interesting for me to know. It's always really hard to judge when who has time. Hi there again, Dash Dash. I'm just in the process of setting up the iPad for... Can you see that? Here, if I switch to here, you should be able to see my iPad screen. And here are the notes which we took. Let me quickly make sure. Yeah. Okay, so what are we doing? We are implementing a new unified interface for... I should learn to look at the camera now, not at the webcam. We are implementing a new unified interface for planning, both of roads as well as zones. Basically, while implementing zone planning in the existing implementation of road planning, I realized that it's way too complicated, way too specific for road planning, and that it's not even that nice. I saw that people, including myself, really had difficulty interacting with the road laying interface. At the same time, the kind of core idea that I was going for is really cool, and it was kind of in there, but I think you can implement it in a much clearer, more simplified way, which is the following. And hi there, Planet 10. Using this here as a reference, the idea is that you just paint these paths onto the canvas that is the game world, which consists of lines like here, here, connected by control points. Hold on, that's probably a package.
Hi, heute für die Nachbarn, dass sie nicht für sie. So, ja, nicht.
Ja, klar.
24.
Okay.
Ich habe vergessen.
Einkauf?
Einkauf.
Ja, ich sehe die Nummer hier.
Ich mache das Apartment-Nummer sowieso.
Danke. Well, sorry about that. Apparently, I just accepted a package for a neighbor, as you do. That's funny, that never happened to me on stream. Probably everyone is just gone now, right? So let me try again my introduction from the beginning. The idea is that you draw these gestures onto the screen connected by control points, and these gestures can then represent different things that you would like to be built in your city in the future, for example roads. So if you imagine that you draw these strokes with the road brush, what the game does, it first approximates a nice curved version of these lines and then generates roads around that. And now you can see that some of them have more lanes, some of them have less lanes. So there the idea is important that each of these gestures, each of these strokes, has metadata attached to it, which I call the gesture intent, that specifies, for example, this stroke here should represent a road with 2 lanes on each side. Here's just a single, forking off lane, and here you have a 1 lane road, right? That's the basic idea. And this is what we implemented so far. We implemented the user interface both for creating new control points as well as moving existing ones around. And we implemented a simple version of rendering that. None of that ever ran yet. This is kind of a style of programming that I do quite often with Citybound, that I invent a new system, try to capture it all in code and just write everything to the way I think it should work, and then basically fix all the problems and bugs until it runs, and then fix all the problems that I see where it doesn't do the correct thing. And we're kind of in the middle of that. If you didn't watch any of the previous live streams especially, I would really appreciate if you could take a minute, or not a minute, just 5 seconds, to tell me in the chat if that explanation so far made sense. I made it even a bit shorter than yesterday, the intro. Not sure if I captured everything that well. Well, hi there, Gary Mitchell. Nice to see you again as well. So yeah, just oh, we didn't do by the way the check for the stream delay, which is always kind of important for me, because when I read the chat here, I need to map your response to whatever I was saying, which sometimes is easy, sometimes it's more difficult if you're talking about lots of different stuff as well. So we'll do it like always. I will count to 3, and on 3 I will clap, and I will ask you to please spam clap in the chat when you hear it. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Thanks, perfect, for your feedback. Okay, so thanks guys, that's very helpful. So probably around 15 seconds, which is really not too bad. Maybe already right now one of you guys can tell me if you would be interested in having a live call later. I offered this in all of the previous streams. Basically, if there's at least 2 people with a microphone who have some questions or some topics to talk about. I would be super happy at some point within the stream to open up a Google Hangouts where we can discuss that in person. If not, I also understand that, and we can just use chat Q&A if you have any questions. So yeah, let me open up the code editor, and probably like this it's nicer for you guys to read, right? Let me quickly check for myself how that looks. Okay, this is not hidden. Make this a bit bigger. Okay, that should be fine. So as you can see, I was like looking at the render implementation here, thinking how to change it. I made some. I was thinking really hard about how to improve the renderer, but like I said, it's a topic for more than a day because it's not just a classical renderer, but I mean, the crazy thing about the city-bound engine is that the simulation can be completely distributed over several computers, so you might even potentially need to render stuff in the game world that's running on a different computer, where you might have internet delay in between, and it basically becomes something like, whoops, sorry, like a streaming renderer. Which is not that trivial, and there's also the things that are being drawn in the game are very different, where on the one hand, for example, you have buildings and trees and roads which only change very rarely, and on the other hand you have cards which are updated every single frame and which need to animate smoothly. And I didn't quite come up with a like nice simple theoretical framework, sorry, that can fit all of that. So for now we'll just continue to use what we have, and there's one slight improvement which we can do later for the rendering of the lines connecting the control points, but for now I will just leave it as it is, and now start with writing the code to actually hook everything up and make our new planning mode accessible. Even though it doesn't do anything yet, it doesn't generate roads yet, I first just want to try the interface for creating dots and moving them around, and then yeah, we'll just take it from there. So we have here our spawn function for the canvas and the control point interactables. We need to, for our plan manager, which holds the master plan of the city representing everything that has been built, for that we need to also write spawn function, which basically generates the initial state of that, and then the possibility to create new proposals and to like have a certain player look and edit a certain proposal. In the beginning we will just have one proposal. A proposal is basically one particular project of changes that you want to apply to the city, which can be any combination of roads or zones. Planet 10 is asking, will there be a live stream the day after tomorrow? Tomorrow is Wednesday, the day after that is Thursday. Yeah, most likely, yeah. I'm trying to go for at least a live stream a day. Might not always work out, but most likely, yeah. Okay. Let me actually quickly check. Oh, cool, that's good to know. So I would be more than happy to have you tune in again and talk to you then. Let me quickly check the analytics here. Hey, that's not too bad, 17 concurrent viewers. That's quite cool. Hi there everyone, I understand not everyone can be in chat, but just hi everyone that's watching. Really glad that you tuned in. Cool. So let's try to get this set up. What do we need for that? Not much, honestly. That's pretty much it. We just set that up. Turns plan manager. If at any point during the coding, I always can't judge how much people who are watching are programmers themselves. Something is unclear or you're interested in a particular detail, just write it in chat and I will react to that. Hi there, Smeargle. Nice to have you as well. So we create our initial plan manager state using our ID. Our master plan will just be an empty plan in the beginning, because, well, in the beginning there's nothing in our city. Proposals will be, let's say there's one initial proposal, which is also just an empty plan. We will add all the user interface for managing like different projects at the same time and switching between them in the UI later. First, I just want to get the planning interface for one working. So what else do we have? Implemented proposals is obviously just empty. And what else? UI state is also at first empty. So now we have the concept. We have this plan manager representing basically all of our change proposals as well as what's already implemented in the city, and that exists once as a global instance shared across all multiplayer players. But you can see here that it has this dictionary mapping machine IDs to UI states, where basically each player can have a different current proposal that they're looking at and have the respective UI elements that correspond to that. And we want to be able to communicate with the user interface on that particular player's machine. So for that we need to add a message handler here for basically connecting a new player on a new player's sometimes talking and coding is difficult at the same time, or explaining and writing. You end up writing what you're saying even though that's not what you want to write there. Okay, so if a new player connects, they need to give the ID of their local user interface. And what we then do is in self UI state, I don't know why I don't get autocomplete here, by the way, that's kind of weird. But okay, whatever. We insert for the machine of the player, which is the machine that his user interface is running on. So we can say user interface as raw ID machine. And what do we insert? New plan manager UI state. Yeah, I don't get any autocomplete here. Let me quickly reload the window. It usually fixes it. And nope. Probably there's a syntax error somewhere. Should just let's just let that compile quickly. And okay, let's see if I will get autocomplete or not. Oh, this should be proposal. Okay, whatever. So current proposal is none initially. Canvas also none. control point interactables is empty vector. We don't have a current preview initially. The preview for proposal basically represents a preview of what would happen if you combine this set of changes to what exists. So if you draw some new roads in a proposal, the preview will show you the end result of combining these with existing roads. Well, user interface is the user interface that we're getting past. And okay, that's all that we need to do there. See, that should be correct like that. Oops. What is it complaining about? Okay, seems good. And then we need to have a message handler for switching to, like, having a particular player switch to a particular proposal. So once again, we need the machine ID of the player and the proposal ID, which is just an index of the proposal that they want to look at. And what do we need to do in this case? Well, for this machine ID, we set the current proposal to this proposal ID, and we have to recreate the control point interactables, but only really for one machine. Okay, whatever. This will do a little bit too much work now. I'll leave a note here. And then we also have to, well, create a canvas. So self UI state, if there's already a canvas UI element, canvas, then we want to basically remove that, and for that we need to pass our user interface. Right. I will simplify this a bit. Whatever, let's leave it like this. Also, we'll get problems with mutability again. So if there's currently a canvas, we remove it, and then we create a new one. So and then gesture canvas spawn. Again, we need to pass the user interface. What else? Plan manager. That's just our own ID, the new proposal ID, okay, and that should do the trick. Oops, this should be. So we will have to simplify this a bit. If we call this switch to message, we should already have a UI state for this machine. And then we should be able to do this. Oops. Okay, seems good. Oh, nice to have you. Good luck with your physics test. You didn't really miss much. Did you see any of the previous streams? Or do you know what we're doing at all? Because if not, I could try to give you like a 1-minute intro again. In the meantime, this all looks good, so let's actually create a setup function that starts all our actors which we need. So so what do we need to do here? We need to register our plan manager, our gesture canvas, and our control point interactable. We need to call the auto setup, and then we need to spawn the initial plan manager. And then we need to connect to the plan manager. So for that we will also need the ID of an already existing user interface, which we will pass in here. Obviously this is now a bit simplified for just one player, but it should be easy to extend it to the future for multiple computers. Just has everything in there already. Yeah, Obi, I'm serious. Let me know if you know what we're doing, if you had a chance to watch the previous streams, because if not, I can give you your own exclusive private intro to what we're doing. Because I feel like I still need to practice that intro. It's a complicated system. Okay, cool. That's also interesting to know. Like I said earlier, there will be streams if I manage every day. Might not always work out like yesterday, but I will really try. Also because I'm just enjoying this so much. After the first day, I was just, even though the second stream was kind of boring and I was really exhausted after 2 streams. I think I streamed like for 5 hours in total. I was so happy, and I like really realized that streaming, I don't know, it's just so much. It makes the coding also much more fun, and I really like the interaction with you guys. I really like the. You have to know that I love to explain stuff, and even though I might do quite a shitty job of explaining stuff here, just because I also try to get stuff done, it's just something that feels really, really nice to me. So I will try even after this hackathon to somehow make it possible to incorporate a lot more live streams into my life, just because I love it that much. And that's also thanks to you, my dear viewers. It's just so cool that you watch this. If someone told me like I don't know, before I started doing City One live streams, that there would be people happily watching you implement some boring part of your code, I would be like, what? No, that never happens. But it does, and it's really cool. Yeah, and the crazy thing is, it doesn't even always feel less productive. Like, there is parts of the code where I need to like hyper focus because it's just so complicated, and for that the live stream is not the best. But for kind of this easy to medium difficulty stuff like we're doing now, where I already kind of know uh, where I'm going, it feels almost as if I can concentrate more while I'm doing this, because I have to keep up this inner monologue with myself, uh, really both driving me forward and making me concentrate on going through all the steps. Um, yeah, it's really cool. So we first connect using our local user interface, and then we switch to um, just the 0th proposal, because right now we only ever have one proposal, and then later we will implement UI to switch between proposals that we want to edit. Okay, that should hopefully do that. Hey, cool, thanks for your feedback. Hopefully we're only like, I don't know, 10 to 15 minutes away from seeing the code in action. And then we can iterate on something that works and that's running. User face, yeah, that's why maybe sometimes talking and writing at the same time is not that good. Also again, yeah, isn't that always the best moment when stuff starts to run, even if it's broken and shit? It's like, I spent now probably like 3 days, 4 days on just putting my theoretical framework into code, and that moment when it starts working, that's just the best. Okay, so I think we're all set in here. We will actually need to do 2 things. In our main file, we need to yeah, I realized that in the past JS code was of course much more familiar to a lot of people, but I hope that by even just looking at what I'm doing, stuff will start to make sense. I mean, it's extra difficult because I'm using my whole own set of conventions and special stuff with the actor system in here that you can't see in any Rust book. That's something like particular to Citybound. But I hope that I will at least be able to guide you along. Okay, so let's just here planning new, call our setup function with our system, and we should already have the user interface here. Yeah, okay. And then there's one final thing which we need to do. We have this thing called UI layers here. And we need a button in the UI to switch to that. Because I basically implemented the idea of different UI modes, that you might now be in road drawing mode, or now you might be in inspecting building mode. In the past that was all at once, and it was difficult to like try to draw a road when there's also a building there. That's all separated now, and I just added here the user interface for what did we call it, gesture layer, for our new planning mode. And you can see that the old road laying code is still in here, so we will actually have both at the same time, and we'll be able to develop the new one in parallel until it can do everything that the old code did. And then as soon as we achieve that, we just throw the old one out and hopefully reduce the total number of lines of code quite significantly. So I think we can try to run it. It will probably crash. There's an error somewhere still. Okay. Okay, looking good now. So let's actually try to run it. What is that building? Let's see what it will do. I think it should do the correct thing. So that will probably take like a minute or two. So in the meantime, if you have any questions, comments, anything, write it in the chat. I'll be happy to talk about it. Yeah, Planet 10, I mean, like, it is, and I believe you that it's by now scientifically proven, but I mean, it's just based from experience, such a truth that when you teach something, you learn it really well, and often you learn it really well for the first time. It's like, if you can teach it, then you really understood it. And in the process of trying to teach it, it kind of forces you to get all of the details right. Otherwise, your explanation would just be super confusing to people, and you notice that, and that actually guides you to the gaps in your own understanding. I've been a tutor at university once for a lecture that I took, which means that I like helped other people in the following semester to learn the practical stuff. It was actually on operating systems and learning the C programming language, which a lot of people were afraid of, and that was a really interesting experience also because people were really diverse in terms of their existing experience and skill set. I think I managed to actually teach it to all of them. It was a lot of fun and really showed me the difference between kinda understanding something and then realizing like, oh shit, if I need to explain this tomorrow, I better make sure that I really understand it. So that's always a good exercise. And I mean, like, I better understand the Citybound code, so I hopefully should be able to explain it to you even if you're not that familiar with the code base or even programming. That would kind of be the optimal goal. Okay, let's see what it does. Opened up. Let me know if you can see that, by the way. So here you can see we should still be able to draw roads using the old interface. But now if I switch to the new gesture planning and I click, it immediately crashes, which is more or less what I expected. Let's see here, which error message did we get? The length of something is 0, but the index is 0. And we got that on line 76. So let's go to line 76. What do we have here? Oh yeah, see, that's actually our constructor here is wrong. That's why we get this error. So a new proposal should actually already contain one step of history, which is just an empty plan, because yeah, and it should contain at least one, right? Current length, or let me think. No, that's probably fine, but we want to, here when we set the ongoing step, if the length is 0, yeah, basically if it's empty, then we want to make sure that there's at least one empty plan step in there, which we can then overwrite. Or actually we just do this, and that should do it. Thanks for letting me know. Why did that? Oh, texted it opened. Because of my amazing feature of printing the bug, so you can copy it easily into bug reports. Okay, let's run it again, see how it goes. Yeah, I might hide the chat sometimes now just because I need the full screen real estate. Oh, there's actually a, why is there no empty? That's weird. I feel like we should probably implement this just to be consistent with Rust itself. Let me quickly go ahead, compact vec. Oh, it's called isEmpty, I see. Okay. Are we good? I think we're good. So we can run it again. While it's compiling, let me quickly go ahead and open the window a bit. Alright, thanks for tuning in. All the best, and see you hopefully very soon. And that's taking a long time, even though that's just an incremental change. Probably compile speeds are my biggest point of critique for Rust. It's kinda not that bad, because often you can fix most problems or bugs just based on the type system bugs that you get. But on the other hand, in games you very often have these things where everything runs, like there's no crash or anything, but you need to tweak something, and then to have to wait that long every time for the change to be compiled, that's kind of annoying. Like now it took 2 minutes. Also keep in mind that now, of course, I'm also recording the screen and streaming at the same time, which takes a lot of CPU resources. Usually it takes like 60 seconds to compile. Let's try again. We switch to this mode, we click, and that worked. Second one, okay. See, and this is the cool thing about these expect statements. Let me see if I can, okay, that doesn't work nicely, so we'll have to go there ourselves. But we can see line 8, 9, oh, that's, get current version of. So, okay. That's the nice thing here with these expect statements. Basically, this thing here returns either an existing gesture or it returns none. And this expect says that if we get back none, that's really a bug. That means that somewhere else there's a bug and we want to crash. And this is exactly what happens. And we get this nice little helpful error message here. Really nice feature of Rust. So let's say, see, I put down the first point. That worked. I clicked the second time and then it crashed. We didn't see anything yet. That's what I will address after that. But first, just like adding the 2 control points and adding now the second one made it crash. Is it as cold over there as it is here? It's weird. Like it almost started to be spring and now it's like wintry again, and it like snowed and everything's white outside, so it's quite cold. Probably around, yeah, -1. Not that cold. Where are you from, Smigol, if I may ask? Okay, anyways, let's see. Let's think. When basically the culprit is probably the code for adding the first point. So we add a control point to this gesture. Here in start new gesture. So let's see here. Oh, I see. Yeah, it's probably very similar. So let's actually try to debug this here by making here we should have that, right? After starting a new gesture, like gesture should really already exist now, and if not, we should get it should crash there, and then we can think further. Why? Oh, okay, that will just, yeah, that will return something for sure, but then we will crash inside there. Maybe time for some test cases. Yeah, that would actually be a good opportunity now. The problem is I don't have a setup ready to test something that's implemented in actors. So for the test I would basically have to create the whole environment of whatever I'm testing. So like fake user interface, fake other actors around that fake actor system to be able to see if it does the correct things, and then it will also be asynchronous. Not saying that it's impossible, it's just really difficult, so the cost of adding tests is kind of a bit higher than usually, and that's why I didn't do it yet, even though it would probably a really good idea in cases like this. But then again, I mean, you see that the bottleneck is the compile times, and it doesn't really matter whether an automated test checks what's going on or whether I just click 2 times. That takes me like a second to make it crash. I mean, in the meantime, we can think about why that didn't work. Oh, I probably know the culprit. We should still get the same crash, in a different point now. So let's see the call stack here. Yeah, it's inside start new gesture, so that that failed here as expected. But the reason is most likely that I screwed up with the indices here, and if I do okay, apply to here first, that should be current length plus 1, because that's like exclusive range, and then also in get current version of what I want to do is actually want to do something like current history, but that should have worked here. That's confusing me now. Current history. That returns an array of plans, and yeah, what we want is self history, and then again this. See if that compiles. By the way, I tend to like become more quiet when I talk to myself, and I mean, I will see it myself later in the when I watch the stream. But would be really nice to know if you can still hear even my mumbling to myself, even if it might not be important. Just so I know if I set up the microphone correctly. Also, I feel like when I listen to some recordings with this microphone, I realized that the acoustics of this room are kinda shitty. So probably sounds a bit like we're in a cellar or something. If you have any feedback on that, would also be really appreciated. Okay, so that is correct, at least with regards to types. Like, let's rebuild. Okay, cool. Oh, okay, that's good feedback. For example, let me see while we're waiting for the compile times. So I have the microphone, as you can see here, all the way up. But even if okay, when I talk like this, I don't even reach the yellow part yet. And if I mumble like this, it's probably, yeah, almost not hearable at all. So what I can try, let's see here. That's at 100%. I can add as a filter a gain here to make it a bit louder. Let's see if we can see the levels here. Probably any moment now Citibound will open. Okay, if I do it like this, it starts to get into the yellow area here. I will try to be gentle and increase it slowly. I think what we want to go for is for it to barely hit the red. I think like this should probably be good. I hope that you can now reduce the volume on your end, and then ideally it should only go red when I'm shouting, which I don't hope I will, which I hope I won't have the reason to do. So yeah, let me know if that's better now. Okay, let's try again. I switch to the new mode. I click once and it crashed immediately, so I introduced a new back. Just great, amazing. Oh, but it's somewhere else now. In ensure preview. But where did that happen? Where can I see the output of that? Here? No. So weird. Oh, here. So index 2 of range for slice of length 1. Okay, no, I should really, okay, take a moment and try to get all of this indexing shit right. Or let me actually implement this, because this is so screwed up and there's really no reason for that to be. So a proposal consists of an undoable history and a redoable history, really, and then we rewrite it based on that. That is just much safer. So yeah, self undoable history push. Set ongoing step. Check here. Oh. Yeah, that's what we want to do. So and in any case, we want to self-redoable history clear. If we undo, we actually, it's either we insert into the redoable history the last step of the undoable history, and if we redo, we take from the, we push into the undoable history the first step in the redoable history. I mean the redoable history can actually be reversed. So we push that on there and then we pop it off. And here we just have undoable history. Let's see, that should hopefully work out. Yeah, thank you for the warning. The way I have it set up is that it should be able to stream my desktop audio as well. And we might listen to some music at some point. So far I didn't really feel like it. And I have playlists here on Spotify from Twitch themselves actually, which contains only music that is basically royalty free, so you won't get any copyright issues. I had that happen in one of my first live streams where I was like, hey, let's listen to whatever music I'm listening to anyways, which is cool because I like to show that, but obviously that's illegal, and you basically use the work of the musicians to make your own product, your broadcast better, which is not just illegal but also morally stupid. So much better to either use no music at all, so you can listen to maybe own music in the background, or to use music where the creator of that music is explicitly fine with that. Do I need to return bool there? Probably not. And Rust forcing us to be correct, because our undoable history might be empty, right? Yeah, I don't really want to increase it even more because then we get into the red here where it's really might be cutting. I mean, you guys let me know if you have any reference of other videos that you can compare to. If it's still quieter, then I will boost it up some more. Maybe I will even experiment again later for myself with compressors, which basically make the signal louder without clipping it, just like pushing it really hard against the end. That usually ends up sounding like a radio moderator kind of style voice, and sometimes it can be overdone, but I will experiment. I don't like the compressor that's built into OBS that much, but maybe I just didn't play around with it enough. Okay, so now this code here became much more simple to look at and hopefully more correct, so we don't have stupid index issues here. I was basically writing this proposal with the undo and redo history as like in C, and of course I got all my thinking errors and off by one errors and what have you in there, causing the crashes that we had earlier. So hopefully now by just having these two lists of steps that we push our actions between two, it should be more correct. Did you guys hear the news about Cambridge Analytica already, by the way? I discovered that yesterday, just when I was about to go to sleep and like try to shift my sleeping schedule, go to bed earlier, wake up earlier. I discovered this news story about Cambridge Analytica basically offering election meddling and political blackmail as a service, and they've been doing it apparently super successfully for years. Probably the most interesting news story I've seen in a while, and there's more and more being leaked and publicized right now by public broadcasts in Great Britain by Channel 4 every single day, so I'm really looking forward to what they'll announce today. It has already been really spicy. Really crazy stuff. You know, like if you compile time size so long that you can start talking about current affairs and politics, that's a bad sign. Okay, let's try again. Go into the new mode, click once, that worked, click twice, that worked. Hey! Step by step, third point crashed. Let's see what's going on here. Bad access error, what? That's something memory related most likely. What was the software you were using for the Rust documentation? It's a Mac app. I think it only exists for Mac, called Dash, which is really cool. It has documentations and standard libraries, different languages, frameworks, whatever have you. And it has this cool real-time typing functionality where I can be, for example, if I want to look up something about iterators, I can just start writing that, and it not only shows the results, but immediately opens the first result, so I can look really quickly at whatever I need. And yeah, that's just really cool. Probably something similar exists for Windows as well. Okay, let's try to debug our bug here. Where do we have the UI state? Then where did that happen? Oh, it already closed it. So I'll need to quickly run it again and see where that crashed. Yeah, the history is not the problem any longer. I mean, that's a good intuition to, if it causes too many problems now, just forget about history. But that should be fixed by now. Now we just have some memory related problem, which is probably somewhere in my low level code. So let's see here. Maybe that's just a little too deeply nested stuff going on here. So let's see here, we have the yeah. Problem is that the debugging doesn't always work that great in Rust, so we can basically only see the compiled assembly of what we're trying to do here. That's so weird though, why would that fail in the clone? This might be something really low level. Okay, what helps usually with... I will need to recompile everything again. But Rust has its own memory allocator usually that it uses, which makes it often difficult to hunt down memory bugs like this, like they usually end up being shown at a much later point where already something is broken. And like this, you can switch to the built-in allocator, like the built-in macOS allocator, so the debugger will have an easier time catching the first point in time where you do something weird with memory. Yeah. So let's hope that that will help. Basically what's going on here is that I have the super nested data structure of having the plan manager, dictionary of UI states in there. I have a plan, and the plan itself is a hash map from gesture IDs to gestures, and somewhere in there, when stuff is being copied or compacted, something goes wrong. So that goes really deeply into my like custom compact data structure stuff. Let's see. By the way, I'll ask again because now there's a couple other people than in the beginning. Any of you with a microphone that would be interested in discussing something, have some question in a small call, because like I said, I'm happy to do Google Hangout calls on these streams. The patrons callings calls have always been a lot of fun. But they were obviously announced with a fixed date, and like people could come and maybe even prepare some topics that I wanted to talk about, and that always worked out great. Here I'll do it a little more spontaneously, just because I plan to work on this for a whole nother week. So yeah, let me know if you have anything you want to discuss. So let's see if we get a better stack trace now. Hmm. So weird, why is that there? Okay, let's also try to compile it in a not optimized version, so it doesn't inline all of our functions. Donald Jenkins is asking, how detailed would you be able to make the building architecture? Well, given infinite time, infinitely detailed, of course. The idea is to really have a good framework for the procedural buildings that would allow you to have different levels of detail for the buildings. Sorry, I was about to sneeze there. Where you could render both like a simplified silhouette of the building if it's like really far away, and then when you zoom in, hopefully there should be at least like doors and windows, and ideally even ornamental elements like I don't know, like columns, chimneys on the roofs, AC units on like business buildings, all this kind of stuff that gives it structure. It's less for me about like making it hyper realistic and detailed, but it would be nice if buildings have like an interesting enough shape with like ornaments and this technical stuff attached to them, so um, they feel real. They don't need to be realistic, but they need to feel real. um, I think in like 3D modeling for movies, this kind of stuff is called greeble or something like that, where they add all of these technical small boxes and details to spaceships to like first make them look more real, but also to give a sense of scale. It's almost like a kind of texture or material that something has, and for that reason I think details on buildings are really important. Obviously it will be something that I add later on, but yeah, you get the point. What are my plans for the appearance of people? I will probably start off with something very simple, like just tiny cylinders that are colored, like one color for the upper body, one color for the lower body. Um, and then later I might do something more detailed. Probably when the art style is more defined, I will also know how detailed I want the people to be. If I want them to be more like cartoon characters or something more realistic. Again, what is important to me that they feel like they have a realistic shape from afar, and most importantly that the way they move looks human, like their walk cycle, the way they interact in crowds, that should just feel human from like a bird's perspective. um, yeah, that's what I would say about that. If a road or building is built, it simply appears in the city and in a simulation, or do you go to simulate the creation of objects too? Right now there is even a simulation of creation of roads. It's just super fast, it's just a short animation. But the idea would of course be that there is construction of roads and of buildings going on, and yeah, for roads it's a bit interesting how that interacts with the existing cars. Let's just quickly see if we can get it to crash in a more helpful way. What? That is so weird. I have no idea what's going on here. Let me quickly finish my answer. So yeah, it's kind of tricky with roads because you need to remove the old roads, then cars can't use that for a while, so maybe you actually end up with the situation where cars are blocked off from getting anywhere while you're like replacing a road by a new road. So that's something that has to work well in detail, of course. But for buildings, it's even more important because, like, I don't know, just thinking back as a child, this moment when you have new development in your city and there's like construction sites appearing and you're like, holy shit, something is happening, like it's growing. That's the best feeling. And again, the important thing is that the construction site really feels good, that it has this like, oh, something is appearing here feeling, if you know what I mean. Okay, let's try to wrap our heads around this. So in this super weird random part, what the hell, why is there even something about strings? What? What? No, that can't be right. That's always the stupid thing with memory issues. That like you have a memory bug somewhere, but that doesn't immediately cause problems. It just overwrites something somewhere else, or like it allocates way too much memory, and then later you get a crash in a like completely unrelated place, and that's just super difficult to debug. Well, I mean, here you have it. This is what it's sometimes like to. This is what it's sometimes like to debug stuff like that. That is so weird though. You see, the problem is that I can't even easily find out where that's happening, why. Oh shit. Like that's exactly what I was talking about earlier. This is the kind of thing where I would rather do that off stream just because it's really boring. So sorry about that, guys. My suggestion would be that we take a little more time for some Q&A if there's interest or if there's something interesting to talk about. I will end the stream here, try to fix this on my own in the meantime, and do another stream later today, where we continue right after that, hopefully with more interesting stuff. Okay? How does that sound for you guys? Let me know. Yeah, I mean, this would be the next level that actually, like, you have construction companies who do the construction for the city, or you have other kinds of companies that do public services or that provide public services, or even stuff like just developer companies to build new buildings. But obviously that's already quite a refined model of economy, and we can start first without it and then add it later on. Yeah, I understand that the debugging process would be interesting for some programmers, and usually I'm happy to show that. The problem is just, like I said, with memory bugs, that's something so screwed up, and it can be really difficult because you basically have to guess somewhere in the code base. I only know roughly what can be the cause of it, because of it happens now after adding new code, so it has to be somehow related to that. But I have, other than that, no hint whatsoever what could cause it, and so I have to really sit down and consider all the possibilities in my head and hope to find some hint and build a theory, verify it with like adding debug statements somewhere, and it's just really complicated and also really boring, and I'm yeah, I can't do that while also streaming. Okay, reconciling timescales, something that we've covered before, but how can you have a realistic day-night cycles without having super fast traffic and people? So again, that's something that we need to take some dedicated time to experiment with. My intuition now after the first economy prototype is that you can actually speed up traffic and people quite high. Basically the argument was always that they would just end up being a blur if you speed them up too much. But if the game is running smooth at 60 frames per second, our brain is actually quite amazing of like understanding motion of even these like really fast things. So traffic and people end up looking like a fluid where it might become hard to track like an individual car going or an individual person walking, but you still really get maybe an even better feel for how traffic flows in this kind of time-lapse style thing. So my point is you can speed up traffic and pedestrians quite a lot, and then still compress the days a bit, so with the idea being that transport is really the most interesting part for a city building game. Like, you don't really care that much about the parts of the day where that people spend inside buildings, like at work or sleeping or whatever. So you can kind of make it more about the traffic and maybe have people stay at these places unrealistically short. Of course, that kind of screws up the daily cycle of traffic a bit, because it's also interesting to have these times where most people are at work and you have very little traffic, and to be able to contrast and compare that with the rush hours. But you have to somehow make a compromise there. So my current plan is to speed up traffic to the point where you can still perceive it as a fluid, and maybe even make out individual cars as like a default speed, and at the same time try to keep a day cycle within like 10 to 20 minutes of gameplay, so you can actually, ideally the shorter the better, so you can iterate on your design and see the rush hours in like rapid succession and improve your traffic like that. Obviously I will have to see how that can be made happen. Another thing that you can tweak is that you make the traffic flow unrealistically well. Like in reality people are actually pretty dumb and you get traffic jams all the time because like they accelerate too much, they brake too strongly. Of course traffic lights are not important in real life, and this is also something where we can cheat a little bit to alleviate the pressure that we put on the system by like combining the the time scales like that. But I think we can find a solution that works better than any existing game, that captures the interesting parts of reality for you to inspect and improve on, and that's still fun to watch, basically. The further you keep the camera away from the action, the quicker it could run. Yeah, that's a nice thing, you know? Like, I wouldn't couple it directly, but I like the thought of it as a gimmick where, like, you don't just zoom in and out, but you actually, when you go to the street level, time slows down and you perceive it in a realistic pace where, like, cars go at the speed which they would go in reality, people walk in the normal speed. And as you zoom out, you also like zoom out on a time scale level. I think my camera just died, probably it ran out of battery. Which is interesting that it only lasts that short. That means that probably need to order another cable to be able to plug it into power while I'm streaming. How long has the stream been going on? Hold on, let me quickly add my just normal built-in webcam here. Kinda looks more shitty, right? Here, now we can have old me and new me right next to another. I would say that the DSLR is definitely worth it. Or like, I mean, I have it anyways to record my normal announcement videos, but to use it in this setup as a webcam is worth it. Since I'm about to wrap the stream up, more or less it's fine. But interesting that it lasts only that shortly. I don't think the battery was completely full, but whatever. Coming back to your question, yeah, let me know if that makes sense. I mean, it's also only a guess for me, and the only, oh, I need to look, you know, the only real way to find out is to try and to iterate and to, yeah, to really get a feeling for what the best compromise is, what is more important. There's lots of conflicting things going on there, but I think we can find something fun. How about things like industrial accidents or people crashing on the highways, etc.? Yeah, of course, like the disasters were always a really interesting part of SimCity, kind of basically giving a gameplay reason for your services, like emergency services, to exist at all beyond statistics. And I think that's quite a genius thing of them to do, because like all the older SimCities are basically only statistics based. But then the disasters were like this concrete thing where you could like see actual like fire department trucks going to a fire or something, making the city feel like actually something, there's like real individuals and like individual things are going on. So obviously I would want to have the same. I mean, I'm already doing better in that every actor in the game is a real person belonging to an actual belonging to a household that exists over a long period of time and that develops. But yeah, I mean, just even to put your emergency service and infrastructure planning to a test, you need to have accidents and stuff like that. And I mean, yeah, it's also a good example for the general idea that your city might have abstract problems, like you're not putting enough funding into public services, but then these kind of individual events like accidents or crime, or even like visual indicators like having lots of graffiti on houses in a bad area, are these like concrete things that drive home the idea to the player, or maybe even make them aware of this more abstract underlying problem in the first place. And especially considering that my actual main target audience of Citybound is children, not in the sense that the game needs to be super dumbed down and stupid, but in the sense that I want to be able to teach the complexity, the emergent complexity, and all the problems involved in the city, even to children. And I think things like these visual, concrete indicators of events, crimes, the way buildings or an area in the city looks, uh, is really a great way to introduce them to the more abstract underlying problems and to guide them to start to solve them, right? Yeah, I mean that's actually a really interesting point where um, if you ever flew in a plane, maybe either when it was starting or landing and you're really low and you can actually see cars from, let's say, a height of like 100 meters, they look really, really slow actually. And that's why we can, in games, get away with speeding them up so much and they still looking fine because you kind of, as a reference, you use your experience of being on the street level and seeing cars passing by or you being in traffic and interacting with other cars, and relative to that they seem to be moving quite fast, but from a plane it looks so much slower in reality, but we can speed it up because people don't use it as a reference point. So I think I experimented once with which speed feels roughly real from a bird's perspective, and when I ended up looking at the numbers of what velocity I actually gave the cars, I think it was something like 200 to 300 kilometers per hour in a city center. Uh, yeah, yeah, that's. I mean, I wouldn't say that's necessarily always the case, and that the relationship is that perfectly linear. But yes, there's definitely some truth to that. Where like in the beginning, you solve simple problems on a small microscopic scale, whereas with bigger cities, obviously you solve higher level problems on longer time scales. So it might make sense to play these two scenarios on different like default speeds. You might, of course, even in the big city, still zoom in and like solve one concrete small problem somewhere in a on a slow time scale. But probably in general, what you're saying is true. Okay, I will. Let's say I will answer one more question. So whoever is the next person to type something in chat, that's what I will answer. Then I will wrap up the stream, start doing the slow level memory debugging. As soon as there's an end in sight and I know when I can stream again today, I will announce the stream in the blog post on Reddit as a self post and on Twitter and obviously on YouTube. So if you still have some time later, I would be super happy to welcome you back. Yeah, I mean, of course, but I think it should still be up to the player to like choose the speed that they want. Yeah, I was really going for one size fits all. I think the yeah, I think I start to see the value of having different time scales and being able to play on both of them. So what is our last question here? Citizen personality. So I guess I'll just give a quick overview of how I want that to have an effect. Citizen personality will basically be randomly generated. I'm not quite sure which dimensions it will have yet, but it will obviously have an effect on traffic, so you have like different driving styles. Most importantly though, it has an effect on the interaction with economy of that citizen, where they value different resources with different priorities than other citizens. Actually, I already have that in the code that like for some people, for example, hunger is a bigger problem than for others, and accordingly they would like pay more attention to always having enough food at home. I mean that's kind of silly, but at the same time that's true in reality as well. No, and having this for every economical resource, which also includes psychological resources. I guess in English you said it's psychological resources, right? Peace, Alan. Uh, like education, interaction with like a feeling of being in nature, uh, cultural life, social happiness, by just giving basically random priorities, or like to a degree random priorities to each citizen, you hopefully end up with a pretty diverse population, uh, where businesses can even cater to like special niche interests of only some people. And I mean that's what you see, especially if you compare villages to bigger cities. Villages usually only have the lowest common denominator services that everyone wants and needs, but in bigger cities even kind of fringe interests create a large enough audience to have specialized businesses, and having something like that represented would be really cool. I mean, one obvious thing that's not really personality, but just yeah, how rich a citizen or household is completely affects what kind of goods and services they are interested in, right? Okay, I hope that gave you a bit of an idea of what I'm going for there. I will wrap up the stream now. Thank you all very much for watching. I was happy to see so many of you even early in the morning. I will try to distribute the live streams throughout the day, and today and the upcoming days. Like I said, I will announce the second live stream today, and I'll try to get this memory problem fixed in the meantime. I really can't judge how long it will take, so let's see. I always have this problem where like I want to wrap up and then someone asks another interesting question. What do you think about poor beggars going around in the city and poor places around the city? Yes, another great example for this visual indicator kind of thing that I talked about earlier. Would be even more interesting if they're not just like a visual indicator, but if they were actually also citizens of your city, and you can have public services in place that could actually help them come out of homelessness and have a normal life again. I mean, that would just also be a morally cool lesson if you can click on them and see like, oh shit, this is not just this homeless beggar that's on the street, but this is actually a person with a history, and maybe they were even doing well one day, but then something happened in their life, and maybe even the I don't know, social services of your city failed in saving this person, and you have to do something about that. If you can get this kind of learning away from the game, holy shit, that would be really cool. And I think that's what I definitely want to go for. Okay, cool. Like I said, I'll wrap it up. Thank you all for tuning in. See you soon, and have a nice day in the meantime.